To pass the OK, there's two requirements, the essay and the presentation. Now, let's focus first on the essay and then the presentation. This is a video I wish I had before I started writing the essay or doing the presentation. I'm gonna walk you through my essay, which got an A, and then through my presentation, which also got an A. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Feel free to reach out to me in the comments or shoot me an email or a text through social media or whatever. And I hope this is useful to you. There were 6 prompts for the TOK essay. Now I chose the first one, and I started planning and I hated it. I couldn't write anything about it. So instead I chose to change my prompt, and that's when I chose this one, which is present knowledge is wholly dependent on past knowledge. And you had to discuss this with claim or with reference. You had to discuss this claim referencing 2 areas of knowledge, right? So it's pretty simple in terms of what it's asking you to do. And yeah, let's break down the introduction, which is from here all the way down here. So it's a really long introduction. And basically, it's divided, or it can be divided in 3 parts. You have the introduction to my essay itself. You have the breaking down of the essay, of the question, I mean. And then you have the more or less signposting of what I'm going to be doing in this essay. And I mean, this first part I wrote while once I had already finished the essay, because I had no idea what I was going to write before, so I just finished everything else. And this first part, the quote, I found later, and because I wanted the quote to reference time and knowing, or time and knowledge, but I didn't know that was going to be what my essay was about before I started the essay. So this you can worry about till the end, or you cannot put it if you're struggling with the word count or something. And here we come across the first piece of the essay that's really important in the introduction itself, and it's the analysis of the question. This is really important. It was important for me because it allowed me to conclude in the way I wanted to, but it's really important for any essay that you're critical of the question you're being presented. And basically, what you do here is you break down or you discuss the problem terms. And here it was mainly past, present, and the word dependent, and then the word wholly. And finally, I mean, what you do with these problem terms is you define them. So the past can be defined, I say here, present can be defined as. And those definitions are the one you're going to have to deal with for the rest of the essay, so make sure you choose them carefully. And then I discuss the problem terms, then I discuss the ambiguity presented in the question with the words dependent and the word wholly. Because the real problem term here, so to speak, was the word wholly, because it's by nature misleading, as it shifts the meaning of the question, making it an absolute. By that, I mean you can either answer with a yes or with a no. And having discussed my question, you signpost what you're going to do, and this is really important that you signpost. So here, my areas of knowledge I say are going to be history and religious knowledge systems. And I repurpose or I rephrase the question around what I want it to mean. And of course you can make up an entirely new question, but based on my definitions in this area, I can repurpose or reframe my question, and that shows understanding on my part. That shows I know what the question is talking about. Now moving on, here you can see it's 5 pages, but the last page is just the bibliography, so that's not really important. But we start the essay dealing already with one area of knowledge. With one area of knowledge, which is history. And I start this paragraph with a claim. So my claim is present knowledge is mostly dependent on past knowledge. Now, if we skip towards the end of this paragraph, what I do again is I restate this claim. I bring back the end towards the beginning of the essay, and it says, it can be stated that it was dependent to a certain degree as it was modified when new knowledge was presented. Again, here, it's not the same exact sentence, but it's the same sense of the sentence and the same thesis, so to speak. And what do I do in the middle? It's an example. It's basically a big example. I have quotes, I have names, I have more quotes about the person. I talk about TOK things. I talk about language, memory, interview, which is tying it back to language, untapped knowledge, and objectivity, past knowledge, and again the words wholly and dependent. So again, I'm just using terms that the examiners want to read or want to see. It shows A, that I understand the requirements, B, that I understand the terms if I can repurpose them in my own essay, and C, that I'm dealing with the question and I'm not just rambling on about knowledge or about whatever I'm talking about, okay? And this example is unique in the sense that it's not widely used. Sure, I used the Holocaust, but at the same time, I'm not talking about Hitler, or I'm not talking about, for example, Galileo Galilei or anything really general or that a lot of people might use. I'm talking about this specific 9-hour documentary called Shoah by this specific director, and I guarantee that not a lot of people either know about it or have used it in their extended essay. So it's a general example, but it's also kind of unique to me in a sense. And now, the second thing that I do in this second paragraph is that I give a counter argument in the same area of knowledge. I give a counter argument to my previous paragraph. So what I'm doing is here I'm saying present knowledge is mostly dependent on past knowledge. And here I'm saying present knowledge can be considered independent. So I'm contradicting myself, but I'm arguing based on, I'm not just saying things, I'm having evidence to back up what I'm saying. Here I'm elaborating on my claim. Again, here I'm elaborating. And here I'm quoting again. And here this is the start of my example. And it's a long example until about here. And then I'm going back to the thesis of this paragraph and to my original prompt. And I'm saying words like past knowledge. I'm saying words like past knowledge. I'm saying words like present knowledge, past knowledge. I'm reiterating the history here, and it's both reliant and independent. So again, this is the conclusion of my first paragraph, but it's also the conclusion of my first area of knowledge. So here I'm concluding the conclusion of my second paragraph is done, and here starts the conclusion of my first area of knowledge. And I'm saying that it ends ambiguously, that history is both reliant and independent of past knowledge. So it's both. I'm not really reaching a conclusion, I'm saying it's both, and I'm saying it's ambiguous. And then you start with your second area of knowledge, which in my case was religious knowledge system. And again, you start with a claim. Present knowledge is almost fully dependent on past knowledge. Here, and then I start giving here some examples. This is an example, all the way up to here. And here I'm giving data, I'm giving also numbers. So here you can see 2.23 billion and its reference. You can see 6th and 8th century BC. So again, I'm just not pulling this out of my ass. I'm actually backing it up with claims. And here, this is the beginning of my example, and this is the start of my example. And this is the end of my example. So this is all leading person that's grading along a certain trajectory that I want them to go in. And here, they've gone down the path I've laid out. So now I want to bring them back to the reason of why they went down this path. So what do? I reiterate this over here. It can be established that in many cases, religious knowledge systems, so here I'm using the vocabulary that TOK wants me to use. Present knowledge is dependent on past knowledge, which is exactly what I said here. So I'm repeating myself, and here I'm explaining again a bit why, if it wasn't clear enough from the example. And then, what do you do in the next paragraph? You probably gathered. You contradict yourself and you give an example. And that's the beauty of TOK. You don't have to argue one part specifically. You can argue both parts and still be right. So here what I do is religions are not static and can be seen, can have seen change throughout time, right? And again, I'm giving more examples. This is the beginning of my example. And then I start here with a quote by Pope Francis until here. And then I quote the Bible itself. And I analyze the discrepancy or the contradiction between these two quotes in which the Pope is saying something and the Bible says something else. And I reach the conclusion that present knowledge is not always wholly dependent on past knowledge. Here I'm using the terms from the prompt again to make it really clear that you understand and that I'm actually addressing the question. And I go further to say that sometimes present knowledge is not a necessity when acquiring past knowledge, like a discovery or something. But basically, that's the end of my two areas of knowledge. And I have now here my conclusion. Now my conclusion is the key because it's supposed to wrap up everything I've said in a nice little bow. And it's supposed to more or less spoon feed the invigilator that might not remember my introduction or my first paragraph. I'm supposed to, in the conclusion, spoon feed everything I said, all the points, everything I've wanted to lay out to the person that's grading. And how do I do this? Well, dependency of present and on past knowledge is a given. Now that's easy, that's obvious. For you to have present knowledge, you need to have past knowledge. That's basically what it's saying. Then I start with I believe, right? This is what I believe, because remember, there are thousands of people doing probably this prompt across the whole world, and you're not all gonna reach the same conclusion. Some might say it is wholly dependent, some might say it isn't, some might reach the same conclusion I did. So it's important to say I believe, or I've reached the conclusion from my own experiences or something, to make sure that you're not giving an absolute, because theory of knowledge isn't about absolutes. So I say, I believe that present knowledge is dependent on past knowledge. Now here, it might seem like I'm just echoing myself and just repeating the prompt. So I go further on and I say, but the true value of the question lies in the word wholly, which is the same thing I did in my introduction. I broke apart the question. Now I'm doing it again. And now I'm gonna spoon feed what I did to the person that's grading. So I said, history as an area of knowledge, again, signposting, and with reference to language and memory as ways of knowing, more signposting, to make it really clear that I met every single one of the things they're asking me, the mark scheme. I conclude, it becomes apparent that for present knowledge to exist, so must past knowledge. However, I give a small caveat. They're codependent. You can't have one without the other. There is no wholly dependency. There is a codependency. One is not wholly dependent on the other. They both need one another. And here, so I just broke down my first paragraph, or my first area of knowledge, and my first two paragraphs. Now I break down my second two paragraphs, and I spoon feed them to the invigilator, to the person that's grading. It can be said that religious knowledge systems, as an area of knowledge, with an emphasis on reason and faith, as ways of knowing. Again, I'm signposting, I'm saying this is everything I investigated. If you look back at my essay, at my paragraph, this is what you'll find, and this is what you need to give me an A. So here, I just conclude. Again, this is the ending sentence, which is very, very important. And it says, present knowledge can indeed stand independent of past knowledge. Although past knowledge is a much needed aid in the comprehension of present knowledge. So bringing this back to this claim, right, just so you can understand the importance of it, what I'm saying is, present knowledge can stand independent of past knowledge. So here, if I was to answer this question, present knowledge is wholly dependent of past knowledge, false, right? That's basically the answer. However, it is a much needed aid in the comprehension of present knowledge. False, but it helps. That's basically what I'm saying. It's not wholly dependent, but it helps. And in some cases it might be dependent, and in some cases it might not be dependent. But for you to reach this simple conclusion, you need to really talk to the person that's grading you, and you need to really show them that you understand. And that's what basically the TOK is all about. It's about showing them, and by them I mean just whoever it is that is grading, that you understand the topics, that you can address the prompt regarding certain areas of knowledge. That's what you need to do. And yeah, this got an A. I'm really happy about that. Okay, final thing. So after I wrote this, I came back to the top, and I wrote this area, because the teacher told me start with a quote. Start them off slowly, and lead them down the vein of thinking you want to lead them, or you want them to think. So I found a quote, and it was really convenient that it was by a Greek poet, because that adds credibility. But it says, time, as it grows old, teaches all things. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about present knowledge. So knowledge is important because teaching and knowledge are more or less related. And we're talking about present and past. So I found this beautiful quote that kind of sums it all together. And it draws a direct link between time and knowing. And this quote addresses time as a teacher, erasing the importance between present and past, is what I meant to say here, and focusing instead on the passage of time. So again, this is not really TOK. I'm not saying anything about knowledge, but it just leads the person that's grading down the vein of thought that you want them to think, and it starts them thinking about the question and about the fact that you're going to talk about present knowledge and past knowledge and how necessary those are. And yeah, that was the extended essay that was a TOK essay that got me an A, and it was good. I was really proud of it. I'm really proud of this essay, to be honest. If you reach out to me, I can send it to you and you can have a read through it, and just please don't use it or pass it as your own, because the IB will catch you, and just don't cheat. This is my extended essay, my TOK essay, so don't use it as your own, don't pass it off as your own. But if you send it to me, if you ask me for it, I will send it to you, no problem. So yeah, that's it, and we'll see you guys soon for the breakdown of the presentation.